Let us now start our day with a powerful keynote address by Amisha Jain, Managing Director at Levi Strauss South Asia, Middle East, Africa, and Europe. Amisha is an exceptional business leader with 20+ years of experience across several industries like retail, both online and offline, consumer goods, and tech. Prior to joining Levi Strauss in June 22, she was the CEO at Zivame, where during her stint, she led the scale-up of the company's business 9 times in 3 years before it was acquired by the Reliance Group in 2020. An award-winning leader, she has been listed under the 40 Under 40 India's Hottest Business Leaders, as well as India Inc.'s Rising Women Business Leaders by Economic Times and Spencer Stuart in 2015. Today, she will speak about reputation from the lens of a business leader. Joining her on stage for a Q&A after her keynote address will be Ajit Pai, Vice President and Bangalore lead for MSL India. May we have you on stage, Amisha?
Thank you so much, Anubhuti. Thank you for the warm welcome. Good morning, everyone. How are we doing today? I was quite expecting my name as part of the IKEA vouchers, but I guess not. So certainly not part of the serial numbers. It's not listening, but that's fine. So thank you for having me on the occasion of REPRISE. I think this is fantastic. It's amazing to see all of you here, and I know that a lot of you represent various organizations. So just the wealth of knowledge that sits here, I can't even imagine. I can only imagine a fantastic day ahead. And I wish I could participate through the day as well. I'm truly humbled to be here, sharing the stage with some of the noteworthy names that are going to be, part of the conference today. Today, as I have this conversation, this topic that we're discussing, it is one of those topics that I think most of us as business leaders have possibly spent sleepless nights, thinking about it. And as I think through, a lot of these memories come back to me, which remind me of days when there was some or the other challenge. It may not have been a crisis. It may not have been an external world crisis. It may not have been something that would have gotten covered in the media, but certainly something that was extremely important to me as a leader, to my organization, to my people. And as I think back, the one thing that kind of stands out is corporate reputation is something that a leader needs to own. I believe that leaders have a very critical role in stewarding reputation. And if I were to kind of think of a broad-based term here, I view corporate reputation as an overall perception of an organization that is built because of its internal and how the internal stakeholders think about it and how the external stakeholders perceive it, right? And a lot of it is because of the past actions, also because of the current decisions that the organization makes, which in turn kind of shapes people's perception of the organization for the future, right? I mean, it's a very theoretical definition of what reputation is. But if you go deeper into it, and if you think about it, reputation is not elastic. Reputation, corporate reputation, is something that gets built over the years because of the actions that leaders and management takes. And it's almost like a pot of goodwill that you keep filling. And that's something that you can hope will serve you, your business partners, stakeholders in a way that protects the interest, right? Now, we're all hoping that the goodwill will help us. But the question is that when that day comes, is the reputation elastic? Is it going to be able to take the blow? And reality is that power doesn't sit with the corporate. That power doesn't sit with you. It sits with the crisis. So only time can tell. And we as corporate leaders, all we can do today is work towards it. So I think that always on approach towards reputation is extremely critical. And always on investment towards it. Ensuring that we're building our future leaders, we're building our image, such that we are continuously investing towards it. And when I say that, I don't mean putting out articles about the company. I don't mean talking about what we're doing. I mean more so the action. And so I think that's the critical part of it. Now, when I sort of step back and look at Levi's & Co., at LS & Co, we view that our values-based leadership is what is our key factor to our success. And that we've set a foundation, or rather we've become an industry benchmark in being a corporate and a community player that leads with certain set of principles. Principles of a value-based leadership, principles of diversity, equality and inclusion, new age work culture, and a workplace that ignites passion. 170 years on, right? I mean, I'm 170 years. It's not a small period of time. And still, the one thing that guides us is this values-based approach, where it basically is a very clear and consistent guide for the leaders that ensures that we're all sort of following this direction when we take decisions, right? And our actions matter because our performance is effectively based on a set of values that all the leaders carry. And I think that is very similar to the framework that I'm going to talk about today, because the reality is that, when we step back and you think of it, what are the leaders doing today? Like, how are they building reputation, right? Or how are they protecting the reputation of a company? I only think of 4 key pillars that leaders are using to, in a way, build the organization, the future leaders, and maybe the image of the organization. Obviously, it is directly linked to everything that you do on a daily basis. And these 4 pillars are, I'll sort of speak about them, but it's this RISE framework that comes to mind. And the reason this is important is because in an age of an all-pervasive media where everybody is a broadcaster, right? We just spoke of that, let's make sure that we tweet all through the day. Every single person here is a broadcaster. Now, in a situation like that, reputation becomes more precious than ever, and it is fragile. And I think the only thing that I want to main thing that I want to leave with you today is that leaders need to be in this always on mode. Leaders need to make sure that they invest towards it on a daily basis so that they can hold the foundation of the organization, right? And so let's talk through these 4 pillars. I think the first one is responsibility towards people. And the reason it's first is because I believe this is the most important one, right? How are we building our organization? How are we sort of building the culture of our organization? Are we really investing towards it? So a few years ago, there was a report from the World Economic Forum which said that EQ will be the skill that will be most sought after when hiring leaders. And I believe it couldn't have been more accurate. Today, when you look at it, high EQ and a culture that is motivating and supportive is now being recognized as the engine that shapes the reputation of an organization from inside and creates a perception outside. The employees of an organization today are really those stakeholders who actually create the entire story for a company. And I've personally experienced this through a couple of turnarounds that I have done, that the first step is to work on the employee base, is to work on the culture of the organization. And when I say culture, what does that really mean? One important thing with culture is, let's make the office a safe place to fail. I shouldn't feel uncomfortable. Mistakes should be okay. It should be seen as it's okay to learn through your mistakes. I think when mistakes are judged is when the outcome is when people want to take shortcuts. So I think it's important that we work in an environment where people feel safe. People feel that there is camaraderie. People feel that it's okay for me to be transparent. It's okay for me to be comfortable sharing the challenges. I think that is when you see real work happening. And then the second pillar to that in building culture is collaboration. Collaboration is more important in today's world than ever before. Again, because we're always on with our social media. I think collectively I'm thinking when the first tweets go out today, probably 1,000 other people will know what's happening. And this collaboration, this instant effort that goes into it makes collaboration even more important in an organization. Collaboration also ensures that you understand each other's emotion, you understand why a certain function is not operating in a certain way, right? You understand each other's perspective from their own vantage point, and that creates that respect. And the third important thing for an organization from a culture point of view is passion. Passion is persuasive. When there is passion, people go after things. They don't have to be told to work 18-hour days. They may work for 5 hours, but they're there. And this whole count, its whole number of days of effort, all of that goes out of the window. And when this culture comes together, that's when you get a team that is really engaged, that is going hard at it, that's focused, that's collaborative, and guess what? They are your conscience keepers. And hence, making sure that we are sort of building this culture is extremely important. That is the first sort of coin that you put into this jar of goodwill that you're trying to build. And you do that on a daily basis, and your leaders do that on a daily basis. Imagine the power of that. Moving on from that, I think coming to the second one, and this one is sort of close to my heart, is innovation. And when I think of innovation, it's innovation in everything. A lot of people think that innovation is about product. Innovation is about, when I talk about reputation, innovation is about innovation in anything and everything we do. Be bold, be agile, and lead. But that doesn't necessarily mean that being L&S & Co, all I need to think of is innovation in denims, right? The one company that does a fantastic job, and a leader that does a fantastic job, I believe, between both the engaging of people and the innovation story that we're going to just talk about, somebody that comes to mind is Anand Mahindra. The way he engages on even the social media platforms, the way he engages with his employees, the way he creates this environment where people feel it's okay to sort of experiment. He creates a set of leaders who are here willing to sort of go after, explore new things, and build something that is unique. I think he does a fabulous job at it, right? And it's both. It's both people and innovation when you look at it. So what is innovation? Innovation is about making sure that we make bold moves. We're not afraid of taking risks. We're not afraid of failure, right? We're trying, we're building on it, we're learning from it, and then rebuilding, right? As they say, invent, reinvent, or perish, right? Brands have added responsibility today to build their reputation, to make sure that they stay relevant in the market. They have to use data. They have to make sure that they are looking at consumer insights and reinventing themselves. They need to be original and agile at the same time. Consumers are asking us day in and day out. I remember when I was at Zivame, I used to have this email address that was out there for consumers to write to me, and I think that was one of the best things that we did. I used to get these beautiful questions, which I presume no consumer insights effort or a marketing research effort would do. We'd get questions all the way from, I have suggestions on how you can do your packaging, to I have a suggestion on how you can do bundling, I have a suggestion on how we can work with you on maybe sustainability. And some of these things, were important because they were looking at your innovation, they were commenting on things, and it was literally like a panel that that was always on with you, right? And as important as social media is today, I think what's more important for brand is this authenticity that I'm talking about. You risk repetition, you risk bombardment, you risk smoke screens, right? Like, consumers are asking for a unique narrative today. And how do you go after innovation? How do you go after reinventing yourself in various ways of how you operate becomes extremely critical. I think after all, it was Swiggy who told us that 99% of our country that is immensely diverse loves biryani. And that was the magic of data. I mean, they've transformed consumer value creation with using data and AI. And there are a lot of these companies, consumer tech companies today, in today's day and age, are doing that. The beauty is, people like us who've been legacy organizations, we are there too. A pair of denim that you see goes through data, AI, at some level or the other, when it starts at the desk of a designer to when it sits within your hands in your closet. On the other end, I had an opportunity to be part of a beautiful organization. I used to work at Motorola in my early years when I was an engineer. I think this is a company, as engineers, we used to absolutely love. We used to ensure that all of us wanted to be part of that organization. And the one challenge Motorola had, even though it was one of the best engineering companies in the world with high repute, is they failed to do the very thing that they were known for, which is engineering innovation. And it was towards the mid-2000s where they lost their way. They didn't innovate at the time when software was supposed to be the new thing. And we know the story after that. The third pillar, again, a very important one in today's day and age, becoming more and more important, is about serving through purpose. Again, today, all stakeholders are asking more of an organization. They don't want just business results delivered. They want transparency in terms of how you operate. They want an organization to be leaders in things which are beyond business-related decisions. They want you to be more involved in community. And whether you talk about consumers, policymakers, regulators, you talk about investors, in general, public wants to see organizations invest more here. Inclusive culture is important, a culture where people are allowed to operate and integrate with the community, make an impact there is very critical. And hence what's important for a leader is to make sure that that purpose comes forth through what we do on a daily basis. And when the purpose is clear, when we know what we're after, something that we call profits through principles, when that is very clear in front of you, I think people rally behind it. And that again kind of goes and fills your pot of goodwill. So we spoke of three things so far. One is your people, the second is innovation, the third is serving purpose. And I think the one company that comes to mind who does all of these again is Zoho. Sridhar Vembu's Zoho Corporation does a phenomenal job of delivering world-class software from the rural heartland, but with the central mission and work around social impact. It's beautifully done, right? On the flip side, there are organizations that struggle to do the same. And I think Tata Group is one of those groups. I think we all know, with the halo of Mr. Tata, I think they've done a fabulous job of, thinking through India, thinking through the needs of the consumers and their employees. And sort of they've made them that as their mission. I mean, their leaders are empowered to sort of think through it. Their employees are empowered. And I think that's just fabulous. And that's what keeps a company like that going. And coming to my last pillar, again, something which is a no-brainer is being ethical practitioners, integrating your ethical self. On one hand, it is about establishing norms for ethical behaviors, ensuring that you sort of empower employees to help enforce it. On the other hand, it's important for a leader to model it. when you start modeling the conduct that you expect out of your employees, it increases, it overall changes the way the stakeholders and your employees look at you, look at the company. It increases their trust. It changes the way governance happens in the organization, right? It sort of sets a bar for working with integrity. And I think this is more important today than ever before. Transparency through everything we do, right? So on one hand, we have companies like Infosys, who've been named second time in a row, just in 2022. This was the second consecutive year when they were called out as the most ethical company. And they operate also, they still remain committed, given the large operation, all of that, they still remain committed to ensuring that they work with integrity, ensuring that they work through their communities, right? That commitment of theirs is unwavered, and that's quite amazing. But on the flip side, the social media is abuzz with news about new age organizations that struggle to keep their books in order, right? And to a large extent, I believe this starts at the top, right? And hence, as a leader, I think the first place to start is ensuring that you are integrating your ethical self. And we've recently known of the story around one of the payment companies, and this saga, we would all agree, makes a great pot boiler. But I'm sure all of you will also agree that it may not have been one of the best things for the brand. So I think, long story short, we have a lot of things riding on us as corporate leaders. And when we think about corporate reputation, I want to take this one step forward. In today's day and age, and in the last 1 year, we've seen too many things in the papers and articles where we're talking about unethical practices, governance, and all those issues. But when we talk about reputation as leaders, I believe it does not stop at the individual, the employees, or that company anymore. If you were to look at India on the global stage, an individual company's reputation can also break or make India's reputation as we look to become a multi-trillion economy. Today, the question is that when investments come into our market, LPs have started asking investors that they want forensic due diligence. That was never the case 2 years back, 6 months back. It's because of the way the things are unfolding. And if I have to stress on one thing, I do believe that this one pillar of ethical practices is the most important for all of us as corporate leaders, not just for our own organizations, but to develop this market and our country. So I'll kind of leave you with that. At the end, reputation is fragile. It's not elastic. And let's just say that we don't have to deal with a situation where one has to sort of test that. I think it's important that as leaders we learn to respond to a crisis that when we see it and not react. We don't get tempted to jump onto social media to react to this, because I believe that would do more harm than good to the reputation. Thank you.
Sheer pleasure to have you here. So my first question, and we have 15 minutes, is you work with several companies, at various leadership levels. So can you talk a little bit about this whole journey that you've been through, and how have these reputation pillars evolved since then?
I think the reputation pillars in my mind have sort of been around, and if I kind of go back to just even the last 5 to 6 years, I do believe that I think sort of engaging people and empathy are table stakes today. Right, and they definitely have evolved, but I think they've always existed. In my mind, today what is critical for brands is is innovation. And in today's day and age, anything that used to happen over a period of a decade is now happening in a period of a year or two. And that's the shift. And I think the relevance of an organization depletes very quickly. And it's important for people to be on top of things at the time. And hence I feel that this one pillar is more critical than ever before. If we come back home, closer to home, and obviously innovation in my mind is relevant more from a global stage point of view as well, but if you come back closer to home, in an organization as a leader, ethical practices, I think that's one thing that again existed before, but I think it's become extremely important. I think it's important that we look at ourselves and say, okay, what am I going to do to make sure that I sort of navigate this, or rather guide people? Because at times you realize that I don't think we go through a formal training around it. So things that have evolved, I think, is more this need to sort of innovate. However, I feel what is imperative is this need to be ethical.
Right. So just getting a little deeper in that, also what core value is personally very important for you? Because you work several organizations, last one being a startup and now a global iconic brand.
Yeah. Like I said, I think empathy and developing people has been a fundamental thing that I have sort of held very close to my heart. I think I've always had, and if you look back at the couple of transformation efforts that I've done before joining Levi's, one team, one voice, one vision is something you'd probably hear as part of everybody's KRA in my organization, as part of any organization, and I believe it's extremely, extremely important. Collaboration is key. When the company is more important than a function, and a function is more important than an individual, that's when you start seeing great work happening, right? So I think that's extremely important. But as I was saying earlier, I think a core value that I have kind of pushed, and I sort of continue to do that, is pushing my teams on thinking differently, reinventing, even something as simple as financial processes, right? How do you reinvent and innovate in anything that you do? And it's a very, very important lens. You are a digital company, but you're still doing financial processes that are, old school. It's not going to work. You need to think differently. So I feel that while, like I said, I think for me, people is an absolute no-brainer. That's one thing we need to lead with. But I think now we need to kind of supercharge things through innovation, and we need to evolve every year.
Completely agree with you. And very interesting point that you made during your presentation was around this value-led leadership. But you touched upon it very quickly.
Yeah.
We would like you to elaborate a little bit more on.
Sure.
How does that impact organization?
Yeah, so I think at Levi's, there's this beautiful thought process and philosophy around values-led leadership. And it stems from the fact that a company's performance is built on a shared set of values that its employees and leaders have. And in a global organization, this is extremely critical. So from the very inception, I think, L&Co has always been a pioneer in progress, right? But I think more importantly, they've held a few set of values very close to their heart. And these are around values that individuals can understand, right? It's about originality, it is about courage, integrity, empathy. And this is kind of part of our fabric in everything we do. We have two large strategies around our global DE&I strategy that we have around diversity, equality, and inclusion, which is about ensuring that and the second one is our profits through principle, right? It's a multifaceted thing. It is about ensuring that all our employees, again, imbibe this thought process of profits through principle. So going back to the first one, or around DE&I, I find it very fascinating that we've been able to create a framework such that we have absolute transparency around our hiring, transparency and equality around our hiring, promotion, retention practices. We have transparency around the way we go about, compensation and rewards, the way we think through promotion, and this is consistent across our global markets. people have clarity on how rewards are structured, and I think that's fantastic. We have ensured that there is equality in hiring of underrepresented groups, and again, like I said, this is consistent across the markets, across any part of the world you go to, right? The second piece, which is around profits through principles, is also about ensuring that people kind of recognize and internalize this particular value, and they act in accordance with ensuring that while profits are important, we do that through our value system, through a certain set of principles of giving back to the society. And these are very important pieces around this whole values-led framework.
Great. And where does India, since you manage multiple markets, just could you give some context on where India is at the moment?
So I think, this profits through principles framework that we have, it's around ensuring that we bring sustainable, consistent practices across the board, right? In India is one part of the larger sort of framework. Now, profits through principles is nothing but us saying that we're going to work towards certain causes. We're going to make sure that, whether it is environment, whether it is community, when we talk about people or our supply chain, or whether it is, talking about climate change, practices around ensuring that we're working through energy efficiency, circular economy, supporting the circular system, all of that. The beauty is that India is sort of lockstep with all of our other markets in terms of all of these things, right? We are cognizant as we work through our suppliers, as we work through our ecosystem, we apply the same norms. We support our supply chain, our workers, when we worry about workers' health and well-being, we do the same here as well. I think India is lockstep. In fact, in markets like India, when we had a recent change around single-use plastic, India leapfrogged, I would say, and is now setting the global norms, because it's all of a sudden sort of taken a step that doesn't exist in a lot of the other markets, right? So we might be ahead of the curve in some areas, and now that is getting transferred as a learning to other parts of the world. Similarly to your question on, where is India? I'd say India is ahead of the curve even in product. We have some fantastic products which are more premium and are now being transferred to, other parts of our markets. So I'd say we're lockstep or even ahead for that matter.
That's good to hear. You touched upon ethics, as one of the key pillars in your presentation. So this is very pertaining to ethics in information. Why do you think it is being so important today, more crucial than ever before?
When you say ethics in information, is about how we communicate, right? Yeah, I think two parts to it. One is when you're in crisis and when you don't have a crisis, right? And I believe that ethics are critical in both scenarios. Transparency is critical in a situation when you're addressing your internal organization, right? Whether it is setting the vision, mission, and I recall when I took over Zivame and we were just starting the transformation effort. I mean, there were challenges across, but the one thing we found missing is this transparency around information. What am I going to do? Where are we going? Where are, telling the employees and our stakeholders that this is the reality. I recall a day when, I got in an NU, we would have to be bootstrapped. I recall a day, it was the last week, and we were cash strapped. It was payroll time, and we were nervous. How are we going to pay our salaries? And that was critical. And I remember it was my second month into the job, and it was 3 or 4 of us who said, you know what, we're not going to take our salaries this week, maybe next week. And it wasn't that. We were just kind of going month to month. But just I remember to have a casual conversation with my CRO, saying that, look, this is the situation we are in. And he wasn't the CRO then. And he said, you know what, Amisha, I'm sure if you tell a few more people about this, they'll come out and support. Ajit, to my surprise, I had 15 people who walked up to me saying that, you know what, delay my salary by a week. I don't mind. Maybe delayed by 15 days. I had to do that twice in Zivame in my first year. And the power of being honest, the power of being true, transparent is huge. I remember in the COVID time, we were the only company that didn't cut salaries, didn't cut anybody's bonuses. In fact, we made sure it was a higher multiple. But that was only possible because we had an open conversation with the team saying, I need support this 1 month. if you support, we pushed back on our board saying that we're not going to let people go. We are going to protect. And we didn't have to do that. We were hiring through COVID period. But this information transparency was critical. Now I'm talking in a non-crisis scenario. I think it is even more important to be transparent to your consumers and stakeholders in a crisis. I think the worst thing one can do for the brand, for the brand's reputation, for the company, if you are not being simple and straightforward about it. And again, I mean, we've done this, you know, informing our consumers with the smallest of things that used to be around our tech, right? Smallest of things that we found, we would proactively communicate. And I think that's very important. The power of being transparent, like I think when people start trusting you, they react very differently. But I know that this thing takes a lot out of a leader. It's not easy. The what ifs are many, the scenarios are many. And lot of times you sort of probably build up the outcome in your head only to realize that a simple answer, bringing people along, is the easiest thing one can do.
I'm sure a lot of communication professionals who are sitting over here will agree with whatever you mentioned about being transparent in communicating and being ethical. So I'm done with my set of questions. Do we have time to take one or two audience questions? Okay.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Amisha.
much.